Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. We are with the very amazing Adam Atkinson, who is my coach and the owner of See You Later Leaner. I have been working with Adam since 2022 now, and it has been absolutely incredible. And we wanted to do an update. Specifically, I wanted to bring Adam on for this because he has really helped me to build my life, or build prep into my life versus my life around prep. So he helped me to change that focus and the approach that I was taking. You guys know that I have always sung his praises. And so I'm so happy to have him back on. We've done so many episodes together. We did an inner health coach. We did an inner health series like a while ago. We've done talk about gut health. We did previous prep and post-season updates. So this is just going to be another one, not just to shine light on the approach we've been taking in my prep and the last off season, but also Adam's approaches in general. So Adam, thanks for joining me again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So, let's just get right into it. I mean, we're currently many months into prep. We started in September, like Labor Day weekend, I remember.
Yeah,
And then we're aiming to compete in April, May. So, our goal, anyways, is to compete at the Pittsburgh Sports Festival, where they're doing a natural pro qualifier. And let's talk about that in general. So, do you want to give some insight into like the natural bikini division, maybe even how that compares to what the new fit model division is and what people can expect if they're prepping for that too?
absolutely. So first, people are probably hearing that's a long prep already, but with a lot
You're
of
right.
Celeste events that have transpired as a coach, I knew about a lot of the things coming up, and we wanted to plan again around life, around your contest prep. So we kind of got into things early and planned for some diet breaks so she could enjoy, getting married and some very monumental times in her life. And, as a coach, I think one of the best things is I'm always the first to know when someone's pregnant or getting married. And
Uh-huh.
even before the announcements usually come out, and I'm like sworn to secrecy on everything. So, it was fun to kind of keep that private and, just kind of grind silently through the process. But lots of announcements. I think you were the first to even know there would be a Pittsburgh Pro Natural because if anyone didn't know, the website was actually updated before the announcement was made. And Snoop Dogg over here found
I was
that.
like, let me see what's going on in Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
And then it came up and I was like, Adam, I found the musclewear registration link. And you're like, what? Looks like
yeah.
it's happening.
And it said natural pro qualifier. So when we saw breaking news, I was like, well, I already know what this is
Yeah.
going to be.
And I was like, let's keep
So,
it under wraps while we can, you know?
yeah, so we started attacking that. And one of the biggest things I think that we're excited about is now there's a natural, division of bikini, which the criteria is the criteria. If a Jen Dory comes in, they're gonna win, but I think it's less likely of that opportunity happening with drug tested competition. And not only are they drug testing, they're polygraphing, and there were actually a decent amount of failures at the Weeder this year. So, people aren't necessarily getting through this as easily as they maybe thought they might be. So, and that kind of brings me into the fit model division. I think when you look at natural and fit model and bikini, we're going to see a little bit of a blend, but the criteria is the criteria, and we are going to see that division. We really have to think of it really not drug-free or not. Just we still need to look at the top level pros as being the criteria. And even though there's a lot of so-called experts in the fit model division right now, everyone's making a podcast about it. I've had a lot of experience where I was coaching when there were only figure competitors. So I got a really good view of what fit model, well, what bikini was back then to what fit model is now. So I think I have a little bit of an advantage, but I do tend to say with hesitation, now that we've had a much more muscular division, what is the starting point going to look like? And it's not going to be a walk in the park, that is for sure. But I do think we're going to see some people who would be great at fit model and probably decently good at bikini, but I don't think they're going to win both, obviously, and they have to choose. So we just have to think of Fit Model as a smaller bikini competitor with less extreme conditioning would be the best way to describe it. I'm doing a documentary with my client Emily Chanel, who is going to be competing
Oh,
in the very
perfect.
first Fit Model contest,
She's
the
a
Muscle
great
Contest Challenge.
example.
And I
Yeah.
think she's a great example of what Fit Model is or is going to be. My old client, Brittany Brinkman, who stopped competing, she's doing dog rescues now, and she used her fitness name to build that. It's really amazing what she's doing. But I think she would have been a great example of fit model back in the day. She actually was third at the Arnold in 20, I think it was 2014 or 15. And there were like 237 competitors in the Arnold bikini that year.
Yeah,
And
it's crazy.
that's one thing is how much visual appeal is this going to bring? It used to be easy to get people to want to do this, and now when I show them bikini, when the waitress at my breakfast spot asks me what I do, and I show her my phone, she's like, "Wow, there's no way I would have that much muscle." And now I can present something like maybe you might think about doing this as a hobby, you know, while you're in school, and it's affordable to buy the suit because I think it's not that the judges don't want bling. They want it to be attainable for people to do. And I think people forget $500 for a suit isn't a light task for most people in general, and the suit alone, I've been on the phone with people where they're like, how much is this going to cost me? I run down the expenses and they're like, maybe at a later time. And it's heartbreaking because now somebody who found direction for something that passionately fueled them is not going to chase their fitness goals anymore because of the expense of the hobby. And that stinks. Some people will say, well, they're just not motivated enough. Well, some people need that goal for the motivation. And usually that's where I tell them, if you don't do this, maybe get into modeling, hire your own photographer and just, do photo shoots and have fun, but don't stop your journey. But usually at that point, they don't want to hire me as a coach because it's not what the vision originally looked like. And people want to see what it looks like. And that's kind of a harder path to really describe for people.
Your perspective on it is so great. I actually haven't heard that before on the affordability side of it. Either it's because I've not been reading much about people's commentary or because it is a hot take. I think that's such a great point. I remember my first show was in 2015, the fit model,
Yeah.
basically, and no bling on my suit other than the connector had some bling. Um, on the bottoms, that is. It was bought off of like I looked up an Instagram hashtag of suit for sale, and some lady had one from like 2013, a Ravish Sands, and I was like, "Yep, I'll take that one." She shipped it. It was like $20. I'm not even kidding you. So when we're talking about affordability, I think that does make a big difference, and I love that you brought that up, along with the attainability. Um, it's interesting when people see photos of me on stage. They are like, holy moly, you don't look like that. You don't look like that right now. And I'm like, thank goodness, like I don't want to necessarily look like that every day. But I feel like fit model division allows maybe that look that can be sustained year round too, which in my opinion could also support body image, food relationship, less of these pendulum swings in health too, because sometimes when someone gets into it, I'm not saying it'll prevent it, that's for sure, because we all know in
Mhm.
2015 I still hit that struggle. That's why I do what I do now. But I think from a longevity standpoint, it could help too. And from a pressure standpoint, I think a lot of people in the bikini division were starting to feel the pressure. We saw people leave the league, let's be honest, to go try other leagues, federations, or types of muscle shows, you could say. And that was because of the demand or the look being more attainable to them, something they wanted to sustain year long. And when you're told to keep growing and then you show up the next year and you're told grow, and then you show up the next year, you're told grow, you're like, so when am I ever going to be big enough? And then cue the natural division coming in. I think that was a really wonderful thing for me because I saw an opportunity to be in the league that I wanted to be in, but also maintain the natural and to also achieve the look potentially or hopefully. And
Yeah.
then the fit model division coming out. This is what I know a lot of people are probably feeling, and I'd love to hear your take on this. Um, I got some messages saying, Celeste, what do you think of this? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I think it's great for the industry. I have a lot of different opinions and thoughts, but I've heard I work so hard to be big enough for bikini. And I was the fit model ideal or criteria before. And now I don't fit in anywhere. So some people are feeling a little bit of that. Great, it's another what do I do situation. So how would you, or how are you working through some of those mental challenges that clients are probably presenting with, like, which one do I choose if I'm kind of in between?
Yeah. Well, first of all, my coaching style hasn't put me in a position where anyone's done anything to their body that they're unsatisfied with. And I think that really comes down to coaching versus plans. And, I take drugs very seriously when my clients decide to go that route. It's a conversation versus text. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about, you know, what we need to watch, look out for, and if this should even be a valid decision for you. And I think some people are like, well, fit model will be, a bunch of drugs. Well, I mean, for that girl who has everything else but delts, possibly, it really, if you're truly coaching, it's not a protocol. Some will be able to do it without. Casey Samsell's a great example.
Mhm.
Casey stayed relevant in the NPC as a natural bikini pro for a long time and even got third at the Olympia drug free, and I know she was natural. Like she just, that's who she is. I know people will argue that. Um, and then, yeah, it's kind of a difficult conversation because it's political, but I'll say it like as appropriately as possible. But femininity is a choice. And that's, I'm not going to say one way is wrong or another, Andrea Shaw is a great example of a feminine female bodybuilder, and I'm here for it all day long. And I'm here for whatever people want to do to their physiques as long as they don't have any regrets down the road. And, there are people who maybe were the criteria, like it stinks that it's here later, and maybe the damage has already been done. But if you like that look and you're wearing it around 24/7 and you maybe feel too big, why not take a little step back and downsize? If you're wearing a body you're unhappy with, that is muscle. Well, how's that any different than being overweight and being, or even too skinny and being unhappy with your body? Wear what you want to wear, and that's what's beautiful about our world, I think it's you get to choose. You can have rainbow colored hair if you want and walk around confidently in it if you like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And truthfully, too, I think there is some skepticism around will this division end up growing like Bikini has? And I don't blame that, the thought process because we've seen that year over year. There's been growth, and that's always like the question of bodybuilding. I mean, even men's physique looks like what would have been more classic other than the fact that they're covering their legs. It's an interesting thing in the bodybuilding world, but it's also dependent on of course, what's being brought to the stage and what are they rewarding. So I'm so curious to see, like you said, what's that standard going to end up being. Now, you also made a great point about you got to like what it is that you're wearing. And I think similarly, the approach you take has to be very aligned with what you like too. All too often, and I've done it myself, we try to do what we think we should do as a competitor instead of accepting that our life may have different demands or considerations that have to be worked with. So to go back in time when you and I started working together, I was coming off of a prep. So you kind of had to pick me up and work with me, and we had to work really, really freaking hard. And we've talked about that. And if you guys are curious to hear more about that story, go back and listen to the prep reflection on it. We talk about everything. Then off season came, and we originally were like, let's compete in a year. Well, then, or a year and a half, we were kind of thinking. And then it was like, let's just take extra time off because we were seeing such great progress. And we lost about 6 months to the gut health difficulties,
Yeah.
anyways. If you want to say lost, really losing that 6 months gained us so much more. And then life was so good for me. It started to take a much better turn. I think I was really excited to start prep because it was something I could really like cling to and I was like looking forward to it. But then my life took a turn for the better and I realized I had a breakthrough personally that my identity was in Christ and Christ alone, not in bodybuilding, not in my business. That changed so much for me. And I started to take action on things that I felt were irregardless of what happens, I still love this lifestyle. I'm still committed to it and I want to see it through. But I made the decision that after this year, I'm probably going to be done for a while, if not for good. Um, but I'm totally at peace with that. But I remember I came to you recently when we like started the prep and I was like, I don't know anymore if I really want to do this because I realized I don't even like the end look that much. Like the end look is uncomfortable, of course, we know that, but also like I feel very like thin,
Hmm.
gaunt, like you just get to this point. And on top of that, I was like, life is so good. Like I finally felt like I hit a stride in my life with flexibility, freedom. I mean, I had gone on so many trips and it didn't affect us or what we were doing. I was able to manage it very well. So that was hard for me and I remember you talking me through that and you had said, if this is something you think you'd regret not completing or not seeing through, you should do it. And so that's why I've continued and that's what stuck with me. But I know I'm probably not the only person who's felt that way. Like, do I really want to commit to a prep, especially when they have such a good coach? Like you showed me what it meant to really live the lifestyle in a way that I had never seen before. And I was eating good. I was able to have a lot of flexibility. I was just like, why would I want to change this? But now I know I'm talking a lot, but I'm going to fast forward a little bit and we can reflect. Then we start prep and we're starting prep and I'm like, at first it feels like an adjustment because I was grieving like this previous thing where it was a little bit looser. And then I'm in this that's a lot. I mean, it's tighter. But I came to terms with the fact that like my life could still be lived. I had a cruise coming up like a couple weeks into prep. I had a lot of different stuff going on. I was in a new relationship. I was now my stepson. I was trying to get to know him. And so there was so much going on. And I was just feeling like, how am I going to do it? But you've actually implemented so many prep strategies that have made it very smooth. It almost doesn't feel like I'm in prep. Like we're eating so much. We're not doing a ton of cardio. You've given me a lot of diet breaks and my body continues to respond. So how do you, as a coach, know when it's appropriate to implement those types of strategies when you're working with someone who wants to go pro?
Yeah. It's going to be different for everybody. You're going to have people with more adaptive metabolisms. Some of ours were for social, awareness for you. So, I don't want you dieting on a cruise months out, you know.
Which is funny because
Um,
I brought my scale and I weighed everything, but I couldn't bring my food on board, and then I lost my scale. Like it did, I don't have it, and I was like, oh no! But I still was. I like made the most of it. But on an elopement, I'm not. I'm not being on prep on my elopement. I'm sorry. I get one of those.
Yeah, and it is hard. I think that's one of the hardest things about newer coaches and even like my coaches that, I mentor, that's some of the bigger cases we go through. This client's not responding. What do I do? And sometimes the answer is to push more, and a lot of times it is. I think sometimes when we're deep in that prep, our hope is that we hear that word diet break, but it's just really about not letting that stress accumulate, excessively too early. And there's a point where you're in the inevitable grind, and that's actually kind of interesting because, Jessie Hip, one of my long-term clients, was like, "Are you a higher cardio coach now?" And she'd been working with me for years. And it's like, I'm not, but the criteria changed. You need to be tighter than you ever
Good
used to
point.
be. You had never seen tie-ins before when you were placing top seven at nationals back in 20, you know, 17 or whatever was the first year I took her there. And then 2 kids later, here she is. And, she liked a lot of the things I had changed about my coaching style and communication and the daily Zoom calls. But she's like, "Do you give your clients more cardio now?" I noticed. I was like, it's how it is, So, you can't be afraid to push in this sport. And at the end of the day, you're going to be committing to, personal growth through this process. And sometimes it is a little bit too much for people. Maybe, you do a lot outside of bodybuilding, what you offer for your church, what you offer for your donation time to the community, which again, I think that's another aspect that these fit models should be, since it is more attainable. What more are you doing than just your body? What are you doing for your community? Since you don't have to be as lean as maybe the other competitors. This is the stuff I'm interested in seeing, because
Mhm.
now we're bringing influencers into the sport, and that's why influencing is interesting. Like, we want to see what they're doing. Well, like, what's a day in the life of a bikini Olympian? Is going to be pretty robotic and rigid to be at that top level. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there are some of us that want a little more than just bodybuilding at the end of the day. And that kind of brings me back to like why we had the conversation we did was, your life is so great. I think you were afraid to let go of any aspects because of prep. And, you needed assurance and insurance for me, one, that you weren't going to disappoint me. And no matter where an athlete goes, obviously I want you to compete, right? But it
Mhm.
always is like your number one priority as a coach is number one, doing what's best for your athlete. And like, I think we can do both and flourish very, very well. And we kind of talked about if at any point you feel like you're giving up, parts of your life that are so great, let's reevaluate timeline or even doing it at all.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think there need to probably be more conversations like that, like with my client who just got laid off. There's so many things like, you should probably be heavily job hunting versus being in prep right now, even though you have all this free time. Or, maybe it is a good time to kind of keep your mind off of things. Everyone's going to be different. And again, kind of coaching over plans is always my um, big thing. And that's why I love doing the open Zoom calls because I think people tend to fear coaching or just fear
Yes.
like they look at us as authority figures. And if you need to be beaten in the ground and be like physically told and yelled at, I'm not the coach for you. So if you're listening, that's cool. I don't want those types of people, but I do want some free thinking people and people who want to have conversations and actually physically be coached and directed. And if you can follow those directions, we're going to be an amazing fit.
When I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology and went on to earn my clinical mental health counseling degree and even become a national certified counselor, I knew I wanted to bridge the gap between competitors and mental health professionals. Too often, athletes are told that they can't compete and have a healthy relationship with food or their body, and I absolutely disagree with that. I have helped thousands of women globally to build more than just a body by combining psychology, personal development, mindfulness, and my signature peace through growth process. If you are struggling with the post show blues, or you're struggling with adherence to your prep, or any aspect of your relationship with food, your body image, or overall commitment to your goals, I have tons of resources available for you over at www.celestial.fit. Things like a free food relationship coaching series, free post-show blues coaching series, a full competitor card deck with statements to use for affirmations, journal prompts to go through, and even action and behavior changes that you can implement right away. I really believe that by prioritizing the inner work and developing a healthy mindset, competitors can have a more fulfilling journey. And I know the mental side of this sport is really key to establishing longevity, ending the yo-yoing from show to show, and really establishing goals that span well beyond the stage. If you're looking for that support, head over to www.celestial.fit where you can find tons of free resources or even apply to work with me. That's right. I think you speak to putting in the work. You are not afraid to tell, I'll use me. You're not afraid to tell me we got to push. You're not afraid to do that, or hey, let's bump the intensity up here, or this is going to be a harder time, but don't worry, there's other things coming. There'll be relief. Or even when we were in the throes for North Americans, and I was like, I mean, looking back, I was running on pure excitement about like passion. So I think sometimes when we look too far into the future, we can psych ourselves up too, like, which is something I've been guilty of. Like, I look into the future, I'm like, I'm not ready for that. I don't want to necessarily do that. But you do a great job of like incrementally physically preparing, which allows if the athlete is present mentally and reflective to be prepared more mentally because you're used to like, okay, these changes happen, that's okay, or my coach takes this approach, therefore I can expect it. And I also think it's worth mentioning that in the commitment to competing, I personally see it as a big commitment because I have a lot of respect for the sport, for what I need to bring, for all the work that I've done and put in that I'm like, I don't want to half-ass it, you know? I don't know if that's the right terminology, but I also knew I didn't want to abandon all. I needed to find that middle ground, and I feel like I've finally got it. So not only has it been a great improvement season that we had together, but then that carried over into the prep. And I feel not only like I can talk to you about anything that comes up, but also that I'm good with the approach we take. And there is some relief in knowing if I'm just not feeling it anymore, like truly, it's okay if I say I'm not doing this. And there have been times, even in the last few weeks, where I'm just like, and then it's like that's difficult because I never felt that. So when you experience changes in your life and I'm entering this new season of life where I feel as though bodybuilding is still so beneficial and I love it, but it's not everything. Not that it ever was everything, but do you know what I mean? It's just different. So, but then there's the other part of me that's like, well, I'm so excited. I can't not do it. So, and I would live this lifestyle even if there wasn't a show. So why not just keep going? And then after that, we can do other focuses. So I really have appreciated the approach you've taken with me that I could talk to you about changes in my personal, in my medical, in my mental, also with all the different events I've had going on. And you've trusted me. And that's another value of coaching relationships where an athlete can be open is I can come to you and say, Adam, I'd like to have 3 days off to elope. And then you're going to be like, that's fine. You've managed to travel well in the past. I'm not worried about you. And I come back and I managed it well. You didn't have to worry. We're fine. But that's only because we've had time together and a collection of data and consistent communication versus me maybe hiding from time away or hiding from data when it's not pretty. Instead, we've communicated every time.
Yeah, I think that too, like, you have to earn that trust, and you've been with me for a long time, so we know what you can handle more. And if you're a first time athlete, it may take us a while to get to the level Celeste and I are on, but it does happen, and habits form better. And there's been times we've been more flexible. Obviously, in the prep, it's a little bit less flexible. I also think one of the nice things about my coaching, it's affordable for people to do it for a longer term. So like, I really hate when like, you kind of hear people having more expensive prep coach pricing, and everyone has the right to charge what they want to charge. But when you can only work with somebody for the prep, like how well are they really going to know you? Are they going to be able to fix the functional issues that you have in between of the prep, or just honestly keep a good, collaboration together and keep in contact? And I think that's huge. I'm not one of those coaches that jacks up the price just because we decided you were in prep. Like, it's just coaching across the board, and I think, the affordability of what I offer, not to get into price, but makes it easy for people to stay for a long period of time, which is beneficial because if you went on your own in the off season, we wouldn't have even known you had SIBO until you come to me and like start prep. And then it's like, well, why is our body not responding? And that's what's been great about this prep is I didn't get to get you halfway in. Um,
Mhm.
I got to get you, right out of your off season, which is where we started finding, hey, we're having a really hard time up feeding. I feel like you should be able to be higher, but it was our first off season together. I'm like, I really think we should be able to get your food higher. I think we've got a gut issue here. So,
And then you fixed it, and I like couldn't like we were just eating, and my weight was either maintaining or dropping. Like we weren't. I think after the gut protocol, we had lost like 9, 10 pounds, and then it just stayed and stayed and stayed. And then when we pulled, and that helped. I think that helped our prep too. I mean, we weren't afraid to push in the off season. I think that this off season I got up to like 140 maybe, but then I was like, I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable. I think and then we also realized the gut issues, and that brought me down like 9, 10 pounds. And then we were just steady cruising. And while you were feeding me more and more and more, and I was having a lot of flexibility, like it was actually like life changing as an athlete.
yeah, you're assimilating those nutrients better now because the opportunistic bacteria is not taking it over and repopulating or overpopulating, overgrowth. And that makes definitely a huge difference. And there was a massive difference in when we raised food and how your progress photos looked post protocol versus when we were like, hey, I think we need to get your food up. And there's a lot of different things that cause it, stress. prep can definitely cause it. Madeline Taylor is a great example of somebody who had SIBO when she got her pro card because I would try to peak her for peak week. And I'm just like, I feel like you should be able to eat more. And she's like, I feel like the food just sets. And
Mhm.
she had low gut bacteria with SIBO because of antibiotics, just constant antibiotics because she was getting ear infections. And
Mm.
I was like, we've got to kind of trust your gut. I think you should be able to eat more, but based on how you feel, let's keep it back. Let's maybe bump up fats a little bit and see if that helps. And she was able to get her pro card not in the best condition, but just by managing client feedback.
That's so good. You know what? I think I learned too. Being in an unhealthy, toxic relationship was a major contributor because my body was like responding to him. I noticed it. And I would say I was inflamed. And then I was like, also the gut issues, of course. But the gut issues were a result of things that I think that it was a result of a lot of things, history and stuff, but also antibiotics, which I'm not even going to get into details, but I think my body was fighting that relationship in a lot of ways. And talk about trusting your gut. I think it was sick altogether. There was not a lot of there was a lot of not non-communication between me and my gut. And then when I finally was addressing that with you and then coming to terms with things and I made a decision to leave that, then it was like my life started changing for the better. I was immediately like, I could breathe again. There was so much that was positive as a result of that. So then all the pieces started falling together in my life. And it was like, wow, this is wonderful. And that probably contributed also to the struggle of competing again. But then I got excited because I was thinking, well, what more can I accomplish now that I have these things resolved? And what's been really cool, my now husband, when we were dating, Adam, he came over one time. He's like, "What are you gonna eat tonight?" And I was like, "Oh, I have so many carbs I have to eat." Because this is like, we had gotten my carbs up. I was like, I have to eat a lot of bread. So, and I love sourdough. Like, I could go ham on some sourdough. So, I had to eat a lot of bread. I had probably sliced like a good 86 grams of bread, maybe more. And this was like a nightly routine for me. I put it in the air fryer and I was sitting on the couch and I'm like, and it'd crunch. And he's like, cause fuck the roof of your mouth. And I would just eat carbs nonstop. And he goes, how do you look like that and eat as much as you do? And I was like, it's cause my coach, like, I don't know how it happened, but we've built this metabolism, we built this muscle, like everything, like my gut health's better, that it's been really cool to also be an example to other people that you can eat a lot and get these amazing results and feel really good, and also address other areas of your life simultaneously. Whereas a previous version of me felt like, well, with prep and with improvement seasons, it's always going to be very restrictive and very limiting. And yeah, so the work that we did in the improvement season and having time together actually has made this prep, I think, very easy. And now this is just to go into the data side of things. We're around, I think my check-in today was 120. Oh, I didn't even put it in the sheet. I need to do that. It was 123 something. I realized I sent everything, but I didn't put it in the sheet. But 123 or whatever, let's say. And I'm like, I was 109 at North Americans. Like that doesn't even feel that far away now.
Right?
And yet and then when I think about April or May, I'm like, that's so far away technically. So I'm like thinking about the prep approach and how much more time, not time, but how much more of a better process we've bought ourselves.
Absolutely. And you're not taxed yet. We're not really pushing hard yet. You're somebody who truly lives the lifestyle, though, and I think that that's awesome. One thing I'm excited about is one, I know we're going to bring a personal best, and you kind of mentioned something at the beginning of the podcast I want to touch on because I'm the same way. I don't like my contests or like my face photos when I'm in prep, and me and Sarah talked a lot about this too. We typically like ourselves about, like 10 pounds up from our stage weights typically. And there's a difference with saying I don't want to look like that, like professionally, and like really no, or just being like kind of like I don't want to look like that and be like
Right.
really negative about that. But also like because you were in that toxic relationship, I think sometimes we look back on stuff and now we've open that box of shit of things that we kind of avoided during prep, and we associate those pictures with where we were at that time in our life. So I'm actually curious if, with being a new, very cohesive relationship and marriage, and keeping that on point through the prep, and if you're going to view these photos differently, because there's definitely a difference in like be mature and saying, I don't like my stage look as much as here, but those memories being better and just like this actually was a really happy time in my life when I competed. Because I think a lot of us can look back and say, you know, like I think of my last competition, my father passed away about 3 months after, and I was like, wow, like I think I was kind of processing my dad's cancer through my prep, and that was me not opening the box, even though I like called him a lot, but that was like a distraction in a way. But I think I professionally handled it very well with meditation during the cardio and just thinking. And I needed that, but I kind of look at those photos as, you know, dealing with stuff versus, what other people might see.
That's a good point. Because when we did North Americans, I had actually been coming out of like an 8 year relationship. And that one was a beautiful relationship. I mean, honestly, it was until the very end. And then it was like, well, what just happened? So, yeah, that's actually an interesting point. Because at the time, like, uh, I was like 2 weeks out and I was like, Adam, I'm coming and I'm just, you let me just stay with you. And that was great because I didn't have to be in that environment. And then also, like you said, grief. I was not just grieving that, but my mother had passed away like in 2021. So that whole year leading in, it was just so much. Um, and then coming into this improvement season and so much has just changed. It's weird to think about that. Um, but I wonder if I'll look at these photos too. I think what I'll see though is like the culmination of 10 years of this lifestyle and knowing that I'm so happy I didn't stop. And I'm at that point too where obviously I want to win. I'm not gonna be like naive or stu I'm not gonna hide the fact that I would like to win. And I've been working very hard. But will that define me or define us in the progress we've made? No. And that I think it puts me in a prime spot to actually have so much joy in the process.
Yeah, everyone has different genetics. Everyone has different physical and emotional needs. I think that's the great thing about the variety of coaches that we have out there because at the end of the day, everyone offers quite a different service. And I think sometimes people do need different things. Um, However, I'm very catering, I think, to what people need. We do meal plans and macros. But there's a lot more to it than just that. Some people do need, I always like to joke, me and Mike Davies coexisted in the same backyard for a long period of time. And
Uh-huh.
Mike was just one of those people who yelled at his clients. And he said, I hate coaching next to you because I'll be tearing into one of my clients' ass. And then you're so nice to your clients and make me look like a jerk, And we hardly had any exchanges of clients because if you worked with me, you weren't going to work with Mike. If you worked with Mike, you weren't going to work with me. So it was always funny to see that. But yeah, I think that it's been so great over the past 2 years to not only watch you grow as an athlete, but watch you grow as a person as well. My other client, Hannah, who got over her SIBO journey with me as well. she bought a house through all of that, and
Same.
it's just like so cool to see my clients prosper outside of bodybuilding. And, as someone who will humbly say, I'm successful, but I wake up every day and I thank the stars, and I am just like, I can't believe I've gotten to live the life I get to live by doing something that I love every day. I really have to pinch myself. And I have horrible imposter syndrome from it because I love my people. I love what I do so much. And gosh, it's just like mind blowing to me. But I want to see my clients have equal success in all the avenues of life because I really think if I can figure out life like anybody can, and I really do want to encourage people watching this beyond just bodybuilding goals to pursue your professional passions and don't be afraid to make the leap to be an entrepreneur. Doesn't have to be prep coaching, but whatever that thing is you like to do outside of your long 8 to 12 hour days, consider turning that into a career.
That's so great. I have a client who has her own jewelry company actually, while also working full time, and it's just wonderful to see that. Like, I think that's incredible to know that you can build something on the side and it'll work up to what you want it to be. I had to do that. You had to do that. Like you, I look back and I'm like, how have I been doing this for 10 years? Like, that's insane. How, like, I'm so grateful that I've been able to survive. Like how? I don't even know. I'm just grateful. And when you talk about your love for your clients, it's very obvious that it's genuine. I know that that can be painful too, though. Like you're also very empathetic. So you
Yeah.
tend to feel like what your clients are expressing or feeling or sharing or pick up on those things. Does that make your job more fulfilling, more challenging? Like, what does that create for you as a coach?
Yeah, so good question. That's all been changed upon my personal growth. So, it used to be less fulfilling, and I went through a phase, I'm not gonna lie, where I held back because I got hurt. And then that sucked even more to lose people when you knew you could be better because you were
Yeah.
just keeping the door a little bit more shut. So I just had to change my perspective. And I hope people who have worked with me in the past, there's obviously situations that as you grow as a coach, you're like, God, I wish I was 43 when I handled that situation. You know what I mean? But those people helped me grow, and I'm thankful for the hard stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to. I have forever improved my coaching business since 2002. I mean, I always say I'm like I accidentally became a prep coach in like 2000, 9, I think it was, with some figure competitors because I was just a guy in a small town at YMCA training people that then moved to a bigger city. And then, I'm using macros to, fuel people's passion for weight loss and fitness still, and accidentally come across some retired competitors that are like, can I do this macro thing and prep? And I'm like, you sure could, let's try it. And they started doing well. And then here comes, my brand is see you later, leaner. And, I think just at the end of the day, you always kind of have to do the right thing. And you learn as an entrepreneur, like what that is. And it's always going to be different person to person. So you can't always take an old case and say that's the way
Mm.
it's going to be. You just have to use experience to keep your awareness up. And you learn and you grow, and that's just how life is. And I'm excited where I'm at 43 now, getting to get to do kind of like a rewind in the
Mm.
bikini division, now fit model, now knowing more about functional health and digestion. Now, will these women succumb to that? Well, we're still going to have clients who want to lose 60 to 100 pounds to get there. They're going to have more than likely some functional issues that people who only lose, 20 pounds to get to that
Mhm.
stage might be. But I have so much more knowledge than I did back in the beginning of the bikini era. And I'm excited for a little bit of a just something new. I'm excited for shows to be longer. I don't mind. I went ahead and adjusted my schedule for the year. I told my clients these are going to be my check-in days now because now I have natural shows on Friday and sometimes on Sunday. So I could be at shows Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, depending on the weekend. And raising that expectation for my clients was kind of important. Like,
Mhm.
hey, I might be a little less available over the weekend because of how crazy shows are going to be now, and they're going to be longer.
Oh yeah. I think actually competitors are like, dang it, longer shows. Gosh, like it's already
Yeah,
so long.
I do get that. But most of the people that are complaining about it, I'm like, I only see you stay for open bodybuilding anyhow, and then your seat's empty. Like, it's like,
Yeah,
so you've never even stayed to watch Bikini, let alone Fit Model, you know?
correct. Yeah, I
And
wonder what'll
maybe
be last, fit model or bikini? Because usually it's bikini.
yeah. I also think technologies came so far. Now the Musclewear app is so great to let you know when your class and division has started that you can kind of chill out in your room and have fun with your family and friends until it's closer to time for you being on. I know the shows in Nevada just cater to a really amazing experience for the athletes, and that's what's really great about living in Las Vegas is I have a lot of my clients come out here to compete, not only because I live here, but, promoters like Austin Carr and Patrick Sampson and Muscle Contest, they all run great shows out here and it makes it a great experience for my athletes.
That's something I miss about being on the West Coast already. Like I loved the muscle contest shows like so much that I'm bummed being out here. I'm like I have to travel all the way to go. And who knows? I'm not saying it'll never happen or won't happen, but now I like live over here and I'm like, can somebody post the schedule? Like I want to see it or what do I expect? And I'm like, hey, there's one in Georgia, there's some in Florida. It's just different. And then when you add on top of that the addition of all these different like categories or the drug testing and whatnot, it makes sense that you as a coach, you want to be present for that. You also want that first access to see it. So being in Vegas is great for you because you can actually see it play out and be there to support your clients too.
Yeah, it's just a cool area too. Like when you're at the South Point Casino for the Desert Classic, there's people from the casinos kind of walking by and they're like, what's going on in there? And if they just happen to buy tickets, somebody who's drinking on near the strip, right? It could be life-changing for them to be like, man, maybe if I put the bottle down, I could do something like this. Like I feel
Mm.
like the community reach is really cool out here because just the clash of lifestyle a little
Good
bit.
point. That's such a good point. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Like you walk into a show venue and you're like walking past everyone who's gambling, smoking, and then you're like, you have your full tan on, you're in your suit, and they're like,
Hmm.
what is going on? But I love it. Um, and then obviously, I think it will just attract more people in general. The fit model division is what I'm talking about now, but that will probably attract more people in general because of what you said, it's attainable. And also, I think from an entry level perspective, it's a good way for people to like expose their families to the bodybuilding world. I also think about some of the women with maybe less supportive, unfortunately, less supportive spouses. They might see that as a more modest division too, to be honest,
I'm
because
glad
the
you mentioned that.
yeah,
Yeah.
the coverage, and I don't want to beat around the bush about it, but like I'm in Facebook groups where women will post, my man doesn't want me to compete because of the bikini, because of the judges, because of all these reasons. But I think that this division allows some of those women who either they want that modesty or someone in their life has wants that for them. It could still be something. And I'm not trying to tell people how to live their lives. I just know that's a factor. And
Hmm.
the suit bottom cut being a lot more coverage could bridge the gap for some of those people too, who don't necessarily want to show full butt, but they're good with showing their glute development regardless of how much cut there is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like think of when I heard this too, I just thought what a great opportunity for college, people who maybe used to play sports but didn't get that D1 or scholarship to play the sport that they were in, but they still enjoy fitness. Well, now they can invest in a $130 bikini that has, decent coverage that their dad who just let them out of the house, now they're not wearing a thong on stage. It's a little bit more, you know, um, covered. And
Mhm.
I've had dads who didn't go because of that. They thought
Yeah.
it was weird, and now they can proudly, watch their daughter on stage compete. And then also just from the PED side, now, and even just the, less conditioned look, now we can support this because we're seeing maybe a little bit more balance here. And
Mhm.
do I think this division's going to progress? Everything does. That's what life is about, is we should progress. Is it going to get harder and harder? Yes, it will. But look at how long it took bikini to kind of get where it's at. Well, now I think we're going to see competitors graduate to bikini because they should,
Mm.
and we sometimes see bikini competitors who want to go figure. I think we're going to see bikini be even more competitive because we're going to have fit model graduates, so to speak,
Mm.
to challenge the challengers of the bikini division eventually. So, when you kind of think that we've divided our sport from the general population, which we have because of competitiveness, now it's more inclusive. A lot of people don't know what their genetics are, don't know what they can do until they find out. Well, now we're about to find out. So
Mhm.
that's what's really exciting to me about this.
Do you have anyone who's reached out to you and said that they want to do fit model and you're like, that's, and I'm not asking you to name names, but have
Yeah.
you had to be like, no, like you're past that now?
Yeah, I've been surprised sometimes, but people don't know what they don't know, and they hear an announcement, and I think sometimes the people just maybe aren't placing as well as they'd like in bikini. They're just like, should I do this? And yeah, you want to always be honest with people, and
Hmm.
direct them. But yeah, it's there's some people who are just too muscular. Even on my team with, a good amount of drug-free competitors, some of my drug-free people are too far, which is great. That means they make a great, pro bikini competitor that, maybe could enhance just a little bit and, reach that top level, but we just haven't gotten there yet.
Do you think there's going to be a particular genetic predisposition, like maybe a height or a shape or a figure we're going to see? Because you know how some people are like, oh, it's the longer insertion points or the shorter ones. Like, do you think there's going to be a predisposition that really like is favored in the, I guess you could say in both fit model and bikini now because it's kind of going to create a bit more of a definition.
I feel like we're gonna see taller women, kind of have it a little bit
That's
more
what
in
I
the
thought
fit
too.
model. And I hate that I'm even saying that because I hate to categorize it, but most of the girls that I had worked with in the past and that I even threw up on my YouTube, like Britt Brinkman, and Jess, and Sue Tazzy, they were all tall, and those
Hmm.
were kind of like my OG bikini girls, and they, I just think they fit the criteria so well,
Hmm.
Callie, who I was almost embarrassed to post my picture next to her, but I didn't want to stretch myself out and get gooped, but she's like a foot taller than me. She's like 6'2". She would be great for it.
Hmm. Yeah, and
So,
that's why I asked, not because we're saying short people can't do it or what. It's just I was curious if you might suspect a particular favoring, because let's be honest, in the bikini division, I don't know if it's a numbers game. I mean, because obviously, if most competitors are between 5'4" and 5'6", it's going to appear that that's favored. Doesn't
mhm,
mean that that is the only group that can do it. But we saw that a lot, I would say, in bikini. That height range, anyway. Laura Lee kind of just broke that, really, when you think about it.
absolutely.
So that speaks to the point of it doesn't mean you can't or won't succeed. It's just there is, I think, a favoring based off of numbers too. I think we'll see an attraction to more tall competitors in Fit Model 2 because one, the name model, okay. And so that I think will attract people, but also like I think of so many of the volleyball players that I grew up with, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like she would like have fit into this so well. And or any of the like college players that I got to go to camps with, I'm like they literally look like that. It's like
Mhm.
a beautiful athletic form, yet a little softer.
Yeah, I think it's really up to us to make this new wave better because we have so much more knowledge than we used to when bikini came out. These
Hmm.
new people are very unaware of reverse dieting, mental health struggles, and I think our industry has been with more experienced people. There's a lot less like true novice than there used to be because there's less newer people entering the sport. The numbers were really low at shows this year. So this new era, it's really up to us to protect it and educate it and make sure that you know, these new competitors get treated with the knowledge we have now, that maybe no one did macros back in I mean, aside from me, not many people did macros back in the day or even knew of it. You
Mhm.
just got a meal plan that your best friend was getting, and you all wondered, well, I paid my coach this much, and we all had the same plan. She's doing figure, I'm doing bikini, she's doing women's physique, but we all are eating the same exact thing,
You got 10 almonds, 4 ounces of chicken, and some 10 asparagus.
Yeah, 16 almonds or
It's
whatever the number was back then on, we won't name any names of the popular coaches back then. Those coaches don't really do anything in the industry anymore because it's graduated to, you know, a little bit more customization. I still think it needs to go a step further. Again,
Mhm.
why I love the daily Zoom calls. My clients can literally hear what my other people are doing and learn. It's probably at my own expense. I've created a lot of
Yeah.
really good coaches just through people that join my calls, but at the same time, I always feel like I'm covered because people know how people are being treated, how they're being directed, and a lot of times, you're out there and people are like, "Oh, that person's either doing the work or they're not."
Yeah, it's accountability too. And I haven't been on a Zoom call in a while, but something that I did appreciate about it is it was obvious that all of us were custom. And then lastly, or maybe in addition to that, it was clear how much you cared. Like I would be shocked at how much you remembered about people you weren't even like actively working with. They'd come on, you'd be like, "Oh, how's so and so from such?" I'm like, he like just knows and he cares so much. And so I think the daily Zoom calls are not just an example of custom coaching and how you approach each person differently with the same, like you have a very predictable coaching style, it seems, but the way that you coach people, the actual training, the uh, protocols you give are specific to them, which is clear when you go on the Zoom call.
Yeah. And what's great about the predictability is when people hear how I respond to something that's maybe seen as negative in the industry, then I get that text message from someone, hey, I just heard how you responded to so and so, and I gotta let you know I binged and I behind your back, I did an hour extra cardio to try and make up for it. I'm like, yeah, let's not do that. Like, just tell me, and we need to work on this before we take it a step further. We got to kind of put the training wheels on the bike. Can we get you consistent? Because you're not ready to achieve a higher amount of activity or a lower level of macros until we get you, you know, swinging the bat at this speed right now.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And it takes a coach who cares to say that because most athletes, I think, believe that if they tell their coach that, they'll be reprimanded, they'll be told to go do even more
Yeah.
cardio, they'll have food taken away. They fear the repercussion of their action, that they try to clean it up themselves.
Yeah.
When you have a coach you can go to who has the knowledge and experience to support you through something like that, then you can trust your process will be improved and will be better versus seeing a coach as this is something I also don't understand. You hire a coach, you pay them money, and then your only goal is to please them. I don't understand that. Like if they're your coach, you want to get the best feedback possible, which requires honesty, communication, collaboration. So, I think that's been something notable in this industry, even in business mentorship too, or any sort of mentoring like that. It seems as though people forget they hired that person. Like you
Yes.
hired your coach, so that means you don't have to earn their um attention. That's something that bothers me. He doesn't give me my coach doesn't give me much attention, but it's okay. He has a lot of elite athletes, so I gotta earn it.
Yeah.
How are you gonna get
It
there
was
without that?
something that was sad to me because my client Alicia went to the Olympia this year, and so many messages were, I understand if you don't get back to me because of Olympia. Well, why is that the effing standard?
Good
Like,
point.
and honestly, my Olympian was late for a couple things, and I said, I'm sorry, I scheduled a call with so and so, and you were late, and I'm going to take that call, and we have to do our thing after, and that's
Love
just
that.
how it works.
And has it as it should be. I think it's a fair standard across the board to have. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't matter who you are or what the title is. I'm going to treat everybody with respect. They're all paying clients, and therefore they all deserve my attention and support. And obviously, like you said earlier too, there are going to be show weekends where it's just hard. It's harder to get back, but then you have protocols in place to make that easier. To get
hmm
in touch with clients when they really need you. So I think that that's a valuable part of what you offer. It sets you apart for sure. And I know we're coming up on time and you do have a client call. So I am going to be respectful of that client and their investment. So let me ask you, is there anything we didn't cover or discuss or maybe get into that we should have?
I think one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on with like the mental health side of the sport, I'm seeing a lot of girls getting directed into semaglutide for adherence
Yeah,
versus
let's
like
talk about that.
just because the lack of, you know, coaching, so you can't follow your diet. Let's use this drug because you suck at dieting. Like, how broken is that? And, I'm not opposed to using if you're teaching. Now, there's a few clients, no matter how much emotionally we've covered, they're having a heck of a hard time with consistency. And they may need to turn off those hunger cues. But we're not getting ready for a show when they're doing that. And that's kind of what I'm seeing is like, well, you suck at dieting, so we're going to go on Zepic or
Hmm.
any of them that are out there. And, we're just going to beat it into the ground. Well, what does the reverse diet on that look like afterwards? And, are
Exactly.
they going to be on that forever? So just be aware of your practices because the reason I wanted to bring that up is like, the way we're doing things versus sometimes how the plan is on paper. Like, and
Oh,
it
great
it's
point.
it's scary, and I think sometimes people just that's the norm to them, or maybe that coach has a bunch of high level athletes, and that's fine. But the high level athletes fueling the funnel of the plans versus actual coaching.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because from the mental health side of work that I do, I get that a lot. I hear that a lot. Maybe I should just go on this. So, the way I see that is, let's say that is the problem. Let's say that is what you need. Have you already exhausted all other possibilities? Most of the times, there hasn't been an exhaustion of other possibilities. When a coach immediately offers that as a solution, something that worries me is there isn't enough consideration of other factors in the life or mental health, gut health, other concerns like that. It's just a quick bandage so the coach can continue to make money. Let's be honest, they can continue to make money. They don't lose that client to a mental health professional or a therapist or someone like me who offers what I offer. They're worried about that. There's maybe a tight grip. And so here's my solution. And also I don't necessarily knock coaches who only think from a physiological perspective like that. But I think it's below standard. If you're a coach who's not even considering, are there other things at play? Should you even be suggesting something of that sort of intervention? I don't think that's appropriate. So, much like with food relationships, if someone says, "Oh, I can't have chocolate chips without binging on them," my first course of action is never going to tell them to be abstinent from chocolate chips. I'm so not abstinence first when it comes to food. Similarly, if this was the situation, I would not be a drug first. It would
Mhm.
be, well, have we looked at emotions? Have we looked at mental health? Have we looked at changes in your life? Have we considered that maybe you need a diet break or maybe you haven't communicated with your coach on what's going on? There's so many other factors that have to be considered. So I love that you brought that up because it does seem to be a hack that's
Mhm.
gotten shared. And it actually jogs my memory on something else. I saw a fairly well-known coach make a post about some of the practices that they would recommend someone take if they overate or if they were going out to a dinner that maybe would be off plan. I was shocked because they were very much physiological approaches or things like charcoal, and I couldn't even tell you. I don't remember all of it. I just remember reading it and being like, I don't think that's what, if you can't handle one night out and having, we got a bigger problem,
Mhm.
than taking a diuretic or taking a laxative or anything of that nature. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because from a mental health perspective, I appreciate that. I wouldn't say it's a negative thing. I've had clients who are using it. I've worked with weight loss teams that they have used it. And I would say if you're using it in conjunction with learning and applying
Mhm.
tools, I think that's always going to be better than just the drug itself.
Yeah, I have my clients when they have issues like that, move it into your pre-workout, because if you bring only, 8 chocolate chips and you fuel your pre-workout with it, well, an hour later, you don't have that taste of chocolate in your mouth, and you can go home, hopefully, and not reopen the bag. And there's something about, for me with dieting, like going out and having one sushi roll is huge for me because all the sushi out here in Vegas is all you can eat typically. A lot of it is. And like it's, just going out and having one roll or not getting the all you can eat is was very empowering. It's a big difference. And you have to learn these things when you're not competing anymore because you will be a little bit looser and you really need to learn. And we need to teach as coaches. And I think that's one of the most important things.
Oh, yeah. I have so much respect for you, Adam. And you've really changed my life, honestly. I might cry. I always feel like I cry when I tell you how amazing you are to me. I like start crying every time. I'm like, oh my gosh, top five most impactful people in my life. But you have just been incredible to me, and I love singing your praises because, and I always tell you in most of my check-ins, I'm like, I wish everybody worked with you. And I know not everybody's for you, but I like think you are an incredible person, an incredible coach, and the support that I've seen you give clients I've referred to you, but also the support you've given me. I love that you're both data driven with the you're data driven with compassion, you're data driven with empathy, consideration. You talk about more than macros, build more than just a body. It's We're so aligned that I appreciate your approach and how much you've changed my views on life, on competing. You've been there for me through a lot, and you've been the first to know about most things, which is so cool. And yeah, you've just made it accessible and easy to have such a great experience. So, how can people reach out and apply to work with you or contact you for information?
Yeah, they can go to Instagram, see you later leaner, or they can go to my website, seeyoulaterleaner.com.
And I think now you even have an option where people can select how they heard. You guys can suggest
Yeah,
that if you'd like
yeah,
to.
how you found out about me. So, you can type in Celeste if you heard about me through the podcast. So, it's always nice to know like where people came from. So,
Yeah.
we always love that.
Yeah, I think that helps too. Like whenever I have my applications, at the bottom it says like, why did you choose to work with me? And I get to see like how people like, why are you applying now? And I get to see, oh, they saw from a client testimonial, oh, their coach sent them, or oh, I'm like, oh, that helps me too from a business standpoint. In all honesty, from a business
Yeah.
standpoint, what's worth the energy?
Because I love when it's one of my clients I referred to you, because then I can like check up on
Yeah.
them. And I usually ask the client, do you mind if me and Celeste ever, communicate if needed? And most of them are just happy the fact I even offered that,
Yeah,
but
seriously.
there have been a lot of cases we're working together with people, which is
Mhm.
awesome. I think it's always important for coaches to know when to refer out not only for mental health, but also, physical health. Like there's a lot of coaches bypassing doctors right now, and you really have to know where your limitations are as a coach and what you should be treating and what you shouldn't.
Good point. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for your time. We'll put your link in to Instagram and your website and everything on the show notes page. You guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized and there's tons of them with Adam. So if you can't get enough and you want to hear more, just go through the whole tab and it's great. You'll see so many episodes that we've done together. And let us know what stood out to you about this episode. Maybe if you have follow-up questions, just ask us. Feel free to reach out and let us know, and we can either cover it again or we can answer it via DM. So thank you all for listening. And Adam, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.